Peace, and love, everybody. How y'all doing out there? This is Baba Makanjuola of Ori ENI, and I'm here to bring you something new I'm starting. Excuse me. Something new I'm starting with Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube called Change Your Mind. We're trying to get people to renege on past ways that no longer serve them in order to give birth to new ways that will bless their lives tremendously and change the way they see things and change their reality in real time. So today I want to talk about ancestors. Today I'm going to talk really briefly about ancestors. I truly believe that ancestors are the missing link to understanding who we are. So let's start here. Okay. You fed your ancestors, right? Most of us who come into the Ifa tradition, the first thing we're taught to do is to start praying and feed your ancestors, right? So you fed them, right? Let's say you fed them. But let me ask you a question. Who are they? You may have their name, but who are they? Who did you just feed? What were their strengths? What were their weaknesses? How was their laughter? How did they handle stress? What was their passion? Did they even eat what you just offered when they were alive? Did they even like that plate of food when they were alive that you just left to rot on that altar, so to speak, right? Did they even eat that? Now, if you knew who they were, you would know a lot of these answers already. I hope this is making sense so far. If you knew who they were, you would know a lot of these answers already, but most importantly, you may know yourself better. Because to get to know your ancestors is to get to know yourself. To get to know, a lot of people don't even know their parents like that. How many people actually ask their parents about their actual lives, right? Like, how did they grow up? How did they experience things as a youngster or even as a young adult? How was their experience raising you? Like, again, in their own mindset, how they processed it. We may have seen some of the things that they were doing, they done, even some of the great things, but that doesn't get into their mind. We need to get into their Ori, because their Ori is an extension of your Ori. And then it just goes back into time, into ancestral realms, right? So we need to get to know who our ancestors are. Now, Ancestry.com is an awesome thing that came out not too long ago, a little while ago, right? A lot of people have tried Ancestry.com and to see where they came from and all that good stuff. But here's the thing with that type of thing. It can't tell you anything that I just asked you above. It can't tell you what a person's strengths were, how they laughed, what their weaknesses were. It just tells you where they came from, a region on this planet in which they came from. But it can't give you the information that you need to figure out who you are. Just knowing where I came from is not enough to know who I am. Because we are more than the soil on the ground on a continent in which we came. We are living beings that have a mission to live out, and our ancestors had similar missions that we are currently carrying the baton for. How can Ancestry.com tell me that? They can only let me know, which is again a sad situation, because in America we don't even know a lot of that, where we come from here in the United States. We don't know where we come from ancestrally. So our link gets cut off after so long. My link for me and my family gets cut off after 1833. I have no idea where we came from before that, on my mother's side. So Ancestry.com is a good tool to figure out where in this world you came from. But to know who those people were, That's a different story, because once you understand who they were, you will begin to understand how you function in this life, because we're all living this life right now carrying the baton of the past. The people who came before us. Some of them did well, some of them did not do well. Some of them thrived, some of them did not thrive. The question is why? Because those why questions and the answers to those whys will resolve the things that you're dealing with. You may be asking, why do I need to do this, Baba Makanjuola? Like, what's the purpose of this? My ancestors are fed. I keep my altar fat. They always got something to eat. I'm always praying to my altar. I'm always at every Gungun festival. I'm always doing what I got to do for my ancestors. Okay. All right. That's cool. That's cool. But let's go deeper. Your job here is to further your family's legacy. Boroboye. Your job here is to further your family's legacy. Your job is to get it closer to the finish line than they got it, or take it past the finish line. That's our job here. Again, we're carrying the baton in the race of life. Every family has a legacy that they're supposed to be leaving here. And we're here, we're born in this lifetime because they entrusted us with this baton for the family. And our job is to get it closer to the finish line, or to blow past the finish line, to take our family to the next phase of life. Remember, you are the baton carrier that they trusted to be the successor of their efforts. That's what ancestors to me are. They are us. I am my mother. My mother's passed on. I am my father's side. I'm so much like I figured out my grandfather on my father's side. I have a whole lot of similarities to him from the things that I've heard about him from my aunts and even my father. I've heard a lot about him, and I'm a lot like him. I even look like him. My eyes look like him. But we are our ancestors. And this is the reason why we actually feed our ancestors. Don't get me wrong. I'm not here saying feeding your ancestors is wrong. I don't want anybody to turn my words turn over on their ears and just misconstrue anything I'm saying. I'm not saying feeding ancestors are wrong. Do what you do. That feeding brings them to you. That brings them into your realm. That gets their ears open to say, hey, who's feeding us? Who wants some help? Okay. That brings them closer. But bringing them closer is one thing. Understanding who they were so that you can plug into that. So that you can do the work that they left behind. Do you remember that scene from the Black Panther movie where T'Challa went back into the ancestral realm to talk to his father about some of his transgressions when he was king? He had to figure out the things that his father did well, and some of the things he had to accept that his father failed at. But he had to correct that thing in order to be the great T'Challa. If he didn't know who his father was and who his lineage was, how would he know how to do that? There's no offering that can give you that. There's no Ancestry.com database that can give you that. The only thing you can get that from is the people who knew those people. If you didn't have a direct connection with them already. If it's your father, hopefully you had that connection. Unfortunately, again, this is America. We know that some people don't have their fathers in their life. But hopefully you would have your father in your life to be able to have that connection at least. But let's go back deeper. Grandfather, great-grandfather, great-grandmother, grandmother. Let's go deeper than that. How were they? How were they in real life? Do you know? Have you even asked the question? Have you asked the question of what was their laughter like? What was their passions in life? What did they do as a career? How were they as a husband or a wife? How many children did they have? How did they mother? How did they father? Do we ask those questions? Or do we just leave a plate of food on the altar and hopefully it just happens through osmosis that we'll get an understanding of who they were and it will just sink into us and then we'll just become them and like we just got a download? No. No, that's not how this thing works. That's not how this thing works. I hope y'all are following me with this. And I'm hoping I'm not offending anybody here. You know, some people take my words the wrong way, but don't be offended here. Just plug into what I'm saying, and I'm sure there's a jewel in here you're going to be able to use. All this information is stored, guess where? Everything I just talked about, we already have technically already in us. Guess where it's stored, y'all? Who can answer that question? Where is this information already stored? It's stored in your Ori. And this is why the Ori work is so important. The key to everything that we came here to do is locked in your mind. It's locked in your Ori. And that Ori is a direct connection to Olodumare that is going to guide this process for you. Of course, Olodumare is a destiny person, right? But your character in which you get to that destiny is governed by Olodumare, which is governing your mind, which is where you make your choices. Where you make your choices sometimes will resemble your ancestors. It will resemble your ancestors. Do you not have any traits like your father or mother? Do you not have any traits like your grandmother if you were able to see it? Blessed to have a grandmother? I wasn't blessed to have one, so I don't know. I never had a grandmother. But if you had a grandmother, do you have any traits like that, like her? If you had a grandfather even, do you have traits like him? Like an auntie or somebody that's been close to you, do you have any traits like these people that you can pick out? Do you have a career path that you chose that's similar to theirs? That's Ori work. That's Ori work. All that stuff is in your Ori. You just have to unlock it. Your job in this lifetime is to take that baton and unlock that information so you can take that baton closer to the finish line. And like I said, blow past it if you can. That is our job. If you're living, breathing, born in this world, your job was, you were entrusted with this information in this lifetime to take this legacy further than your ancestors were. That's why we should be feeding them. We should be feeding them to get the extra support that we will need, because we should understand what we're doing. I hope this is making sense to somebody. So, how do you unlock it? Well, some say we unlock it through initiation. Those who know what Ifa is know what I'm talking about. Through initiation to Ifa. All right? Some say initiation is one. Some say go get a Dafa and figure it out. A Dafa means a spiritual reading in Ifa. Some say through rituals, like I said, offering food to ancestors, you know. I still offer food to my mother, but I did a lot of work with my mother. I'll tell you what that means in a hot second. But the rituals are one way to, like I said, bring them closer. The Dafa is another way of opening these portals to get closer to them also. The initiation is a huge portal that will open it up to bring these deities and these people, these energies to you. But now, let's get back down to basics though. And we're going to close with this. Let's get down to basics. Outside of Dafa, rituals, and initiation, there's a simpler way to do this. I think y'all probably know what it is already. There's a simpler way to do this. It doesn't take a plate of food or putting their favorite drink on the altar. It doesn't take a ritual or Dafa. It doesn't take an elbow being done. It doesn't even take initiation. Guess what it takes? A good old-fashioned question. Asking a good old-fashioned question. Who am I asking the question to, Baba Makanjuola? Let's talk about that. How about those aunts, those uncles, those grandparents, like I said, those parents, even those family members that can't stand you or you can't stand them. Even those family members you can't stand or they can't stand you. If they're an elder in the situation, You need to be humble and ask the question, because this is about you figuring out your purpose in this family tree. It's not about your personal emotion. It's about you understanding what your purpose is in this family tree. Period. End of story. Doesn't matter if you don't like them. Doesn't matter if they don't like you. If you humble yourself enough to bring yourself to their feet, to ask them the questions that you need to ask to figure out who you are and what is this baton made of that I'm carrying, and why am I carrying it, and how do I play a part in this process of my family's legacy, you'll go further. Now, I practice what I preach, okay? So I'm not somebody just talking about this because it's just what came to my mind. Let me jump on Facebook and talk about it. No, I practice what I preach. So I had to do this about almost a year ago. I had some aunties in LA, my mother's sister. My mother passed away years ago, so my mother's sisters are still here. But I hadn't really had a good communication with them for probably over 15 years now. And I made the phone call to them out of the blue. I know my aunt, she was kind of like, what? Like, you want to do what? So I made the phone call and I went over to her house. We made the plan. I went to her house. I sat down with her and I started asking her questions, because my aunt is my oldest. She's older than my mother. So she knew my mother, you know, as from a baby up. And I asked her questions about my mom. And she gave me answers that I would have never known, like how my mother was and how she really thought and how she really processed things. Like, I'd had no clue of these things. And then I went further and I asked her, well, auntie, well, how was it for you guys growing up in Louisiana back in those days? What made y'all come to California? Like, what was going on? And she started telling me the whole story, like how her father was and how her mother grew up and how that situation. Well, I'm not getting into my family details, but she told me all of these things that I never knew. And I got to know how my grandfather was, his temperament even, that I may have got a hold of through my DNA transfer to this planet. But it opened the portal of understanding. Now, once I understood, I can have more empathy towards what my mother had to go through and what they had to go through. So now that I understand, now I can process this stuff a little differently. I can process, well, look at yourself now, Baba Makanjuola. Look at yourself now. How does this apply to you? How do you handle these things in this lifetime? How do you handle these? How have you handled things in your life throughout this process that may look somewhat similar to them? And what is it you need to correct so that you can get it closer to the finish line or blow past it? That is the only goal here. Anything else, we're playing. My job here is to get this thing to the finish line, close as possible, or blow past it Hussein Bolt style. That's my job. How do I do that if I don't know where I came from? How do I do that if I'm too arrogant to even ask the questions of the people who have the information retained in their Ori that may pass away with that information and I will never get it? Do you know who your ancestors are? You're not going to find this out in the Ancestry.com booklet or report. You're not. Only way you're going to be able to get that is to humble yourself and ask the right questions if you truly want to know who you are and why you're here. I've had my initiation Dafa Odu for the last almost 4 years now. This is my 4th year this month. It helped me, but it didn't answer everything for me. The answers come from me doing my own work. They say once you get initiated, now you got to go initiate yourself, which means you got to go do your own work. They kept telling me, though, go talk to your father's side of the family. Go talk to your mother's family. They kept telling me that, but I didn't know why at the time. But once I had these conversations with them, I knew who I was a whole lot more, and I was able to control some of the things that I had challenges with. a whole lot better. I was able to manage them, and some of them I was able to even eradicate. But some of them I'm still dealing with them. But when I see them, I can recognize it. It's not foreign to me anymore. I'm not reacting to it. I'm responding to it. This is why the ancestral work is so important, y'all. This is why it's so important. And this is why the Ori work itself that you always hear me talk about is so important. I wish I can leave my link in here in Facebook for people to take it, because Facebook blocks my link. I don't know why, what their problem is with Ori ENI, but they block the link. But if you want to get more information on what we do and to learn more about this Ori work and how to unlock this information, without this information, I don't know where you're headed. I don't know where I was headed until I found it, to tell you the honest to God truth. I did a whole lot of ancestral work and offerings and everything. I did a whole lot of that stuff. I did a whole lot of elbows. But at the end of the day, the only thing that really got me on the right track is Ori work, which led me to understanding who I was, what my purpose was, which led me back to my ancestors and asking questions about my mom, and then that led to everybody else. And when I got to that point, all right, now I know why I'm here. Now I know why I'm doing this. Now I know what I need to do and what my job is. Now it's time to execute. Simple as that. I am Baba Makanjuola. I hope that you enjoyed this. Please share this video. At best case scenario, maybe even like the Ori ENI page. If you can, go subscribe to orieni.com. That's ORIENI.com. Get you a free membership trial. Schedule you a free Ori coaching consultation. Whatever you need, we have it over there. Just check it out. Surf the website. See what it is you need. If you need some help, you can always call us and we can walk you through the process. I am Baba Makanjuola. I'm here to help you change your mind and how you view things. And we're going to start this thing out with, like we said today, ancestral understanding. We got to be archaeologists in this point. They dig up bones to figure out what animals and people did and how they lived. It's in the DNA of the bones. You can tell if the bones was a woman or a man or not, just from the bones. You can tell how stressful their life was just from the bones. We got to be archaeologists and dig up our ancestors. Not literally, but dig up our ancestors. Dig up the information about them. And we'll figure out how they lived, which will play a big part in how we live, but more importantly, what we need to master in this life that they may have mastered or may not been able to master. You're carrying the baton. How far do you want to take it? I'm Baba Makanjuola. Appreciate y'all, man. This has been fun. I ain't did this in a while. Talk to y'all soon. Again, go to orieni.com. Like, subscribe, and share this video as much as you possibly can. Let's talk about it. Change your mind. Baba Makanjuola.